Today we're going to be making potato and farmer's cheese filling for the classic traditional potato farmer's cheese pierogi. If you saw any of my earlier videos, we show how to make the dough, which you could also find in the Homemade Pierogi Recipes Tips and Secrets book. It tells you step by step how to make the perfect simple dough that always comes out with only 3 ingredients: water, egg, and flour. After you completed the dough, we can get started on our filling. Let's go. Our ingredients that we're going to be using today are farmer's cheese, about 1.3 pounds, and I saved the label for you, so just to show you what kind we like to use. You can get that at your local market. It's a very similar texture to ricotta cheese. It is not cottage cheese. That's a little too moist. Then we got margarine, about 3 to 4 tablespoons. We're using a whole yellow large onion and about 2 pounds of low moisture potatoes. And of course our salt and pepper. The tools that you're gonna use besides the pots and pans are a knife, fork, potato peeler, and our potato masher. All right, so let's get started. We're gonna start by peeling the potatoes to get them going and have them boiling. I'm just gonna grab a bag. I like to save some grocery bags for my peels. I also like to use the potato peeler because if I use a knife for this, then I'm cutting half of my potato off. And of course, if you have any of those black spots on your potatoes, make sure to cut them all off. These look pretty nice and clean to me. So this recipe is very popular. You can find this recipe on every Polish holiday table. It is loved by kids and also by the big kids, the adults. It's a great appetizer, dinner, breakfast, lunch, midnight snack, whatever you want. That's why when you're making these, it's good to make a large load. If you have a big family, you won't have leftovers. If you have a small family, it's nice to have them frozen so you can just have them ready at any time. They're nice boiled, they're nice fried, but the filling is most important here because if you don't have the flavorful filling, then your pierogi just are bland, which is a lot of the pierogi that you find in stores nowadays, they don't have no flavor. So the filling is just as important as the dough. The dough has to be nice and soft, melting in your mouth, crispy when you fry it, and the filling has to be full of flavor. We like flavor, we don't like no boring pierogi. Even though it has only a couple ingredients, you can still make it delicious. This was a very popular meal back in the day because it's cheap. Everyone has potatoes. Everyone had margarine, onion, cheese. I'm gonna throw my peels out. Now I'm going to rinse my potatoes under cold water. Wash my babies in here. Next, we're gonna cut the potatoes in halves. That gives them, that makes the boil evenly. It also makes them boil quicker. If you have a huge potato, cut it in thirds. So this is what our potatoes look like. Notice no black spots anywhere, okay? We got lucky with these because they were nice and clean. And you want to throw them in a boiling water next, or warm water. We do that. I already have my water cooking here. The reason why we throw them in a warm water is to maintain all the vitamins. We're going to add salt in about 10 minutes, and I'm setting my timer here. And adding the salt in about 10 minutes also helps them keep all the vitamins. You don't want to add them right away. I'm going to cover it just so they start boiling quicker. And as soon as they start boiling, I'm going to uncover them. All right, so come with me here. What do we do next? I'm also following my recipe in the book here as I'm making this with you. So we got our potatoes going. Now we're gonna melt 3 to 4 tablespoons of margarine in a skillet and add 1 yellow onion cut into small cubes. Caramelize until tender on low temperature, making sure they do not brown, and then set aside. All right, that sounds pretty easy. We got our onion. I'm going to peel it from its skin. You need this onion in here. This is one of the key ingredients that brings a lot of flavor to our filling. The yellow onion you want to cut into small cubes. There's a lot of different methods that people use to not cry while you're cutting. You can use one of those methods if that's easy for you. I am very sensitive, so I might cry in a minute. Alright, so make sure you cut them into small cubes. You can chop a little extra. And now we're going to come over here and we're going to take our onion and our margarine and we're going to start our caramelized onions. You're gonna need a wooden spoon too to stir things up a little bit. So you want to heat up your pan. Once your margarine melts, you're going to lower the heat to medium-low and add the onions. Now while you're doing everything else, you gotta keep an eye on your caramelized onions because it is very important not to let them catch any color, not to let them burn. We like to use margarine because it does not burn easily, just as butter does. Now if you want to make two things at once, if you want to also make your caramelized onions topping for your pierogi, you can do 2 onions instead of 1, so that way you already have a topping for later. Right now I'm just making the filling, so I'm using 1 onion. Alright, so this is melting. I'm going to turn it down a little bit and let the onion do its work. My potatoes are boiling. I'm going to pretend it's been 10 minutes. Add too generous amounts of salt. That helps us season it later when we're finishing up the filling. And I have about 25 more minutes on my potatoes, so I will see you when they're finished. Okay, I'm poking my potatoes here, and they're nice and soft. It looks like they're ready. The fork goes in easily. Turning that off. My onion's ready. Remember, you don't want it to catch any color. We're gonna drain our potatoes. Make sure they don't have any water in them. This is hot, be very careful. Steam. All right. Ooh, I got stuck. Ooh, nice and steamy. All right. That looks so good. So now we're going to the steaming potatoes, we're going to add our caramelized onions. Loaded with margarine. Yummy, greasy. I'm a little sloppy sometimes. All right, so we want to mix the onion with the potatoes while it's still warm because they get a nice mixture. They're easy to mix and mash. Don't use any mixers. You need to use a masher because we only do it old school. We believe in old school, babcias version, babcias version, grandma, great grandma. Use those hands. We don't have any measurements for salt and pepper because that's totally to taste, but it needs to be nice and bold. We want to taste the salt and pepper. Going to return to my recipe and see what's next. So make mashed potatoes. Peel 2 pounds of potatoes, cut in halves, boil gently, salted water, soft, about 30 minutes. If you poke with a fork and they are soft, they are ready. Drain the potatoes, add to warm caramelized onions, add salt, pepper, and mash. All right, so we did that. I'm going to continue mashing. I'm going to grab another spoon because it fell on the ground. So make sure you grab all the corners when you're mashing, just to make sure you mash underneath and on top, nice and well. All right. You see how nicely it blended? That's because they're warm. So what you want to do next is you want to crumble your farmer's cheese with a fork. Here's my fork. Crumble your farmer's cheese with a fork. Again, no mixers. This farmer's cheese is very mild in taste. This is why you need to make sure you're using a lot of salt and pepper so they're not boring and bland, and they're full of flavor. Next, crumble the farmer's cheese with a fork or a press. When potatoes cool down, add the crumbled cheese to the potato mixture. If you add it to steaming potatoes, you will create a puree and your filling will lose the flavor of the farmer's cheese. The potatoes should be warm but not cold. So, our potatoes are still steaming, so we're not adding the farmer's cheese just yet. We need to let it cool down because we need to be able to tell the farmer's cheese, potato, and onion while we're taking that bite of the pierogi. So you set this aside for about 10-15 minutes. Make sure they're done steaming, they're cooled off a little bit, and then you add your farmer's cheese. I'm gonna pretend that it cooled off already, so you don't have to wait. And I'm going to add my farmer's cheese next. This filling is so good, you can eat it with a spoon on its own. And continue mashing. I'm sure we're gonna need more salt and pepper just by looking at it. You wanna see the black. You wanna taste the salt. Don't be afraid to use it. So you want to over season it. You want to over season it because when you boil the pierogi, they become mild. The salt and pepper becomes more mild than you actually season it. Again, grab the corners. So every bit of the pierogi has the onion, farmer's cheese, and the potato evenly spread. Again, some people add more potatoes, some people add more farmer's cheese. We like to put the amounts that we have in the book for a reason. We've been using this recipe forever. Normally we did not have measurements, but we just kind of felt everything out, tasted it, but we did put the measurements together for you. I'm gonna taste it. It needs more salt and more pepper. If you got some family members around, have them taste it. I'm sure they're gonna love when you ask. All right, that should be good. Next, do a final taste test. See if it's seasoned well, re-season if necessary. The taste should be bold. If you do not season well now, they will come out bland, like I said. The flavor will blend in with the dough later and it will become more mild when you will boil your pierogi. All right, so our stuffing is ready to be chilled. And meanwhile, we can begin the dough. This is gonna chill for, I would say, about half hour, just so it gets cold. As you can see, it's very fresh. And when we're pinching on pierogi, it's gonna be a little rough to work with, so we need it cool down a little bit so it's not so squishy. All right. Oh, it looks wonderful. So this is what it should look like, the final filling. Potato potato farmer's cheese classic filling. Looks good. All right, so I think we're done with that. We can get started on our dough. I am planning on showing all the fillings, which are in our homemade pierogi recipe, tips and secrets book. Okay, we have about over 20 fillings in here, all types, sweet and savory, some creative like buffalo chicken, Oreo, blueberry, strawberry, sauerkraut. Those are just a few. You can also subscribe to my channel. Ania Loves Food. That's my channel. I also have a video with the dough just to make it easier for you, and press likes. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see next, and I'm going to make that next. All right. Thank you for watching, and